Would you dress up as a witch again?
I
Jokes about the
do
worst witch.
love being a witch. That was a very special moment.
Well, Felicity Jones, welcome to One Nightstand.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to be talking about these books with you.
Fantastic.
Have you always been a big reader?
I have, yes. If there's ever a moment I'm not reading something and I think there's something really missing, what is it? It's because I'm not reading anything.
Yeah.
To have your head in another story and another narrative is so comforting and calming, and I just find reading an absolute sanctuary.
Yeah, I agree. Do you read at night?
I do, yes. I try to. I tend to find, because I live in London, I actually tend to find reading outside of being in the city much easier.
Yes.
If I'm away. But yes, I'll try and do a page or a couple of pages before I go to sleep.
That's the key, isn't it? Just even just a little bit feels better.
Yes, yeah.
But
I'm reading Intermezzo at the moment.
Oh,
by
I
Sally
actually
Rooney.
haven't read that one.
Oh, it's excellent.
Is it good?
I'm really, really enjoying it.
Okay.
It's really, interestingly, kind of similar to Virginia Woolf in a way of being inside. It's sort of stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
Inside the two main characters' heads.
Oh.
But it's excellent.
Oh. We've chosen 4 great books for us to talk about. I thought we could start with A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. Tell me what you love about that book.
Well, actually, my love for that story started with the film, which usually it's the other way around. But I absolutely just adored that film. I watched it when I was a student, and then just kept watching it over and over again. And I just love that it's set in Italy. Yeah. I love the romance, and the character of Lucy Honeychurch and all the surrounding characters, and the general kind of lust for life that is at the center of the film, and then came to the book afterwards, and obviously just how I was struck by how true the film adaptation is to the book.
Yeah,
captures its essence.
It really does, and the scene setting between each section of the movie
is so good. The titles, which obviously comes from the book, and just a glorious, just celebration of what's important in life.
And Judi Dench and Maggie Smith together on screen when
I know, you can't quite believe it.
Totally.
So interesting seeing Judi Dench, because I think it was one of her early films.
Yes.
And obviously both her and Maggie Smith, always amazing to watch. And then that really, Helena Bonham Carter was one of the reasons I wanted to become an actor, was watching her work and the variety that then she went on to do. And I've just loved her as an actress from being a really young woman.
Yeah, I love that book as well. And I think the film captures this well too. It really has a lot of these quite disposable female characters, or they're meant to feel disposable by society, the Allen sisters, who are these spinsters that everyone's oh, maybe they'll have the house, or we'll let someone else in. And I don't know, it was just surprisingly, when I read it again for this, I was it's surprisingly sort of pushing the boundary on that a little bit.
Yes, it's but it does it with such a light touch,
exactly,
doesn't it? But you get a sense of the complication of those lives and their existences.
And how which again, you mean your film that's out this week, Oh What Fun, it sort of has that sort of, well, similarly, that kind of the woman who's doing a lot of stuff but is feels a bit placeless sometimes.
Yes, exactly. And how powerful it can be to explore that through humor.
Exactly.
And you get a sense of these women's lives being under the surface are incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I loved the sort of the class commentary stuff of it as well. Was that appealing to you as well?
Yes, it's the way that Forster sort of captures character, and he has such a kind of perceptive eye, and how in society, the society that he's commenting on, everyone is sort of on the surface being very nice to each other and very civil, but underneath there's all sorts of other things going on, and there's competition, and there's economic sort of rivalries, and he manages to capture it in a very subtle way.
Totally. And how Cecil, who she is meant to...
Cecil?
Yes.
Cecil?
And he's like a real like shit, like you say, on the surface shit stirrer in a way, isn't he?
Yes,
and
yeah. Played so brilliantly in the film by Daniel Day-Lewis.
It's so
good. Isn't there a scene where he's like flapping a wasp or something? That's amazing.
Yeah. And the scene of the three of them, not Cecil, but Julian Sands and the frolicking in the water.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
It's so good. I was curious when we were talking about this a little bit before that we both we went to the same university, and I also am from Birmingham.
Really?
And, yes. And also went
That's
to
amazing.
I know I went to Five Ways, so one of the other grammar schools. Exactly.
Yeah, that's where my brother went.
Oh really?
Yeah, for sixth form.
Was he older or younger than you?
He's older.
Oh, sorry, I would have definitely missed him.
Yeah.
But I remember when I got to Oxford finding the like class stuff quite difficult, and I think that sort of sense of how it was like always in the room even when you didn't realize it was in the room, and I think growing up in Birmingham I maybe wasn't conscious of it in the same way, and because I think grammar schools are kind of weird in that way because you have people actually from a lot of different backgrounds.
Yeah, they're amazingly sort of from across the city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because I grew up in Hall Green and Shirley, and so I would go all the way across to school. Like we were all from all over, but I'm curious if you had that experience at university or what that was like.
It was probably something I was definitely aware of. I think because I went to Wadham College, and I really I felt very fortunate. I found a group of people that have become my best friends. So I felt that I really found my soulmates there actually. So I had quite a special time there in that respect.
That's so nice. Yeah, I found it a lot harder, but I think I don't think I realised how important the college choice was, because my friends who were at Wadham loved it for similar reasons.
Well, and that had come from, I actually knew someone who'd gone there before, and he had been really into drama and acting, and then through him he kind of showed me around. He was from Birmingham as well, and he said it's great for drama and sort of knowing that there would be that kind of community there really so definitely helped.
It does help. And did you love like studying and the like tutorial process? I remember finding that traumatizing but also kind of fun.
I found it was sort of it's an amazing way of teaching you how to blag. I felt
1000%.
It's literally because you're doing every week, you're doing about, you're doing
4
an author
novels.
a week.
Yes.
You can't, how do you,
and all the criticism.
as much as you try and read over the summer, it's such an enormous amount of information to get through that you actually, it's almost like training you to be a lawyer, of synthesizing the key points and then putting them together to make your argument.
Exactly.
And I was quite struck by that. It's not necessarily about reading every single thing from cover to cover.
Yeah.
It's getting all the right bits and pieces that you need to put something together. I mean, ironically, sometimes you do the least reading that you'd expect from doing a literature degree.
That's exactly how I describe it. Of like, I think they used to say it was like civil service training, where it was like 1 week you're working on this policy and you would read a vast amount, condense it down, offer some guidelines and move on. And it's kind of crazy. And like this kind of school I was at, we were like taught to, I guess, kind of play it safe a bit really, and like offer the correct answer. And then it was only really at university that I was like,
that's not was demanded of you. No, it's the original. What is original?
The original or most interesting.
Yes, it's not ticking the boxes.
No.
You're better off coming from a really intense angle.
Exactly.
And then using your evidence to support that.
Exactly.
But I only worked that out at the end. I was
exactly the same.
Diligently doing all my things.
Yes.
Being the perfect schoolgirl.
I felt exactly the
same. And then
same.
by the end I was like, oh, I get it. You're not supposed to do that.
No.
You've got to be more of a maverick about it.
Exactly it. And I would watch these boys in tutorials who I knew had been out drunk 5 nights a week and hadn't read anything.
They'd be killing it.
They'd be killing it because they were just blagging.
Yeah. And they're it was an interesting, I actually found it quite difficult, the patience of writing essays, of sitting. I found it quite solitary. I found that quite challenging, that and then I'd be constantly checking the word count. I just get obsessed with trying to get to this word count, and I did find that in retrospect I found that quite challenging. It wasn't really it wasn't a group exercise. It was you in the library or in your room just writing and writing and writing.
And you do also come up with some absolute shit.
I know. I feel sorry for the tutors. They must have been reading.
Well, also, they used to make me read mine out loud, and there's nothing more mortifying than being like...
You're like, it sounded good the night before at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Literally. Oh, God. But no, the Forster, I do feel like it captures some of that. Or the different sort of like... the role that all of these different characters play and what they're allowed to be in there. They're like the joy that they're allowed to feel in certain scenarios, and the ones that are like... It's quite
a kind of keen lens on English society.
It really is. Yeah. It really, really is. I loved it for that. But I also really admired, and with George in particular, he's sort of held up as the kind of free-spirited, kind of not so worried about everyone else's sort of needs and goals. Do you think of yourself as quite free-spirited, or are you a little bit more like worried about what people think?
I think it's really hard not to worry about what people think. I think if you didn't care what people think, then good for you.
I know. I'm in total.
That would be. I think it's part of being human, but I guess it's just not caring too much about what people think, and having your own way of doing things.
I know, it's a balance, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
But
it's not always straightforward. I guess it's caring about what people you respect, what they think.
Yes, that's a very good way of thinking about it. Yeah. One of your second book is The Waves by Virginia Woolf, which is another incredible book that I love. Tell me about your love of that book.
Well, that came from I at university wrote I think they called it special topic paper or something. Yeah. They might have changed it, but so my special topic was one was Ibsen and all in his plays, and then the other one was on Virginia Woolf. And so I loved just delving into all of her work, and it was the first time I'd kind of read the stream of consciousness and this idea of just being in people's minds. And somehow I found it very comforting, she captures all the idiosyncrasy of thought. And she actually talked about this idea of moments of you have moments of happiness. Yes. Moments of in your life when things come together and everything feels okay, but actually they are just momentary.
Yeah.
And it's not one continuous, arc of pure joy. You just get moments of
flashes.
Yeah. True kind of being, I guess.
When you read Woolf, do you find I oscillate between going back every paragraph and being like, what the fuck just happened? I need to try and understand, and just letting myself glide.
Interestingly, I found reading James Joyce much harder. I found that really, I just couldn't stick with it really. But with Virginia Woolf, I somehow, and I haven't reread her novels recently, so I don't know what it'd be like now, but I found that if you sort of give yourself up to them a little bit, you just have to let it wash over you.
Totally.
And not... It's funny that there's kind of a way of being you have to be as a reader.
Totally, you do. Yes. You sort of have to give yourself...
Relinquish control.
You really do have to relinquish control. And I was actually listening to a podcast about it, this books podcast, and one of the people on it who's a professor was like, I have no idea what happens in any of Woolf's books. And I was like, the idea that you didn't have to follow the plot. She was like, oh no, I'll never pay attention.
Oh yeah, don't bother with that.
I was like, so chic. But I did think that was quite interesting, because I struggle with the glide, because I'm always like, but what happened?
But what's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what was interesting with finding out so much of her literature is about she had many of her, deaths around her and her siblings, and a lot of it underneath is about loss and grief and navigating that.
Yeah. Also, I think she produced a lot of her like most adored work in her 40s, which I love hearing and just thinking about the idea that can be a really productive decade.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, to read her now.
I know, right? Yeah. Do you go back and reread books?
I tend not to, only because I feel like there's so much that I want to get through that I don't, although I have done With a Room with a View.
Yeah.
That was the one, and it's quite a short book. So
I know.
It's a little easier.
Yeah.
But I tend to want to get onto the next one, and there's not enough time.
I know.
And there's so much to read.
I think it's quite nice to go back into old books though and just read like reading a chapter.
A little bit,
Just like a little taste.
Reminding. I went actually, because I was doing a film a few years ago called The Invisible Woman, which was all about Dickens, and I went back and dipped in, some of his books, having read them as a child, and then rereading them as an adult.
It's different, isn't it?
Very different. Yeah,
it's kind
you
of
get a different perspective.
Yeah, and I think you sort of gravitate towards different characters in a way.
Yes, yeah.
But I was kind of struck by going back and looking at the Waithes, like how many bangers there are, like in terms of like these little like one-line descriptions that you're like, oh god, that's
that capture
so
a whole world.
Yeah, capture a whole world
in such few words.
So few, exactly.
Oh yes. Yeah, it's like stand-up comedians.
Yes.
It's like anyone. I'm so impressed with people who can do that.
Right.
Can be able to get to something so truthful with so few words.
Exactly.
It's that's, I think writing is.
I know.
Is a skill.
Do you ever? I mean, would you ever like read books with the goal of adapting?
Yes, very much. That's often what I'm doing now, and looking for those stories that can potentially work on screen. That's definitely, and finding interesting characters and worlds. And
do you tend to look for newer writers in that sense, or like more classic?
It can vary actually. I think if you're going to do a classic, then it's finding a new way in, which is why I'm really intrigued to see Wuthering Heights. I know. Because I like the way that Emerald Fennell has, with Brideshead Revisited, with Saltburn. Again, Brideshead Revisited was one of my favourite novels, and just seeing how she takes those classic stories and then spins them in such a modern way.
Did you like Saltburn?
I did actually. I did for that reason of knowing how much Brideshead was sort of the bedrock of it, but she'd done it on her own terms.
But also how triggering were those opening scenes at uni, because it just the sings and like it was like exactly like, I mean, she just captured it so perfectly.
And then the way she just adds something surreal.
Yes.
She takes quite a classic story and then spins it.
Yeah.
And makes it alienating a little bit.
That's that's a good way of putting it. So you'd be interested in sort of adapting maybe a more classic book and then giving it a twist somehow, maybe?
I think, if it's, you've got to find, well, what is the reason to tell it now? Yeah. What is the modernity in it that we need to do it?
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Do you direct ever?
No, I've never directed.
Would you be interested in?
I wouldn't rule it out. I think potentially at some point. But again, I think it has to be the right story that you feel really compelled to tell.
Yeah. There was one line that Bernard said in this that I wrote down that I underlined when I was very probably hungover reading it, but to be myself, I need the illumination of other people's eyes and therefore cannot entirely see what is myself, which I thought was really interesting. Do you ever relate to that as an actor? Does that, or do you, I guess, how do you think about yourself in terms of your work as well?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of talking about the difference between the sort of public self and the private self. I think my process with acting has changed so much as I've got older, and increasingly now I just really enjoy the artifice of it, the the wigs and the makeup and the dressing up is I just really embrace that aspect. Particularly wigs in that quite Hitchcock way. I feel like wigs can really unlock something quite uncanny.
Interesting. Do you travel with your whole family when you're on set or something?
It depends. It depends very much on when something is shooting and how long, and it sort of varies depending on the project.
I think the playing dress-up stuff is something that you do so much as a kid, and then it's just funny the way you just stop, isn't it?
Yes,
in a way.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like people when they have to go to fancy dress parties and stuff and Halloween, they really enjoy it.
Exactly.
There's something where you get to sort of let go of yourself for a bit.
Exactly.
Don't you? Jump into something else.
I know.
It's freeing somehow.
It is freeing.
Yeah.
It's like the misrule of Shakespeare, I guess. Those,
exactly. There can be a little bit more playfulness and anarchy and.
Did you, when you lived in New York, did you have big Halloween nights out? I feel like that's compared to London, we just don't do it as much.
Weirdly though, I feel as though now in the UK, Halloween is huge.
Oh, is it catching up?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's massive.
What, as in trick-or-treating?
The whole kit and caboodle. The dressing up, the parties, the candy consumption, or as they would say in the UK, the sweets consumption. Yeah. It's huge now. I think it's because it's such a long period to get from September to December,
so true.
Obviously with Christmas and everything, that people now just can't wait for Halloween.
Yeah.
I think it's just, and it's an excuse. What is it? I think it's an excuse for celebration or the need for a party.
Yeah. Would you dress up as a witch again? But do you get all the jokes about the worst witch?
I love being a witch. That was a very special moment.
Yeah.
I do love a witch's hat.
Right.
Yeah.
Was that what
I did that a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Did you? Oh my gosh, I bet you got a lot of jokes. Have you shown your kids the worst witch yet? Or I suppose they're too young.
No, not quite yet. No.
That'll be. Yes. I bet that's uncanny though. That'll be a strange.
Well, it's amazing how the worst witch and then Harry Potter, how this idea of kind of magical training in a boarding school setting there seems to be a big audience for it. People absolutely go for it.
I guess it's the kind of the British export but with a twist, like I guess because people love that kind
of there's a way into it, isn't there?
That's so fun though.
But that was quite a formative experience because I was about 13, 14 shooting The Worst Witch and just had a fascinating time, and it made some really good friends and
incredible.
Loved playing Ethel Hallow, who's a bit of a baddie and a snob.
Right.
It's quite fun.
That's what I kind of thought. I think it's quite like
she was like Mildred Hubble.
Was it fun playing like a villain though in a way?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And
she had she had really like perfect ponytail with a bow and everything was Miss Perfect.
Did I know that you only did one season and you were just like, I'm done. Is that like, were you just sort of so sure that you just didn't want to go back?
Yes, I just had a feeling.
Good for you.
Yeah, didn't want to do it again.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then it went on and continued to be successful. And
did you ever regret it as a teenager then, or were you just like over it?
No, I think I think my family were going on holiday and I didn't want to miss the summer holiday.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, and you did The Archers, which is incredible.
And that was I did that over about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And because Birmingham in Pebble Mill was amazing for all the television production that was happening, and then obviously alongside that was the radio production.
That's amazing.
So I used to love going and being Emma Grundy, getting some pocket money at the same time.
I saw this incredible someone when Sir Tom Stoppard died over the weekend, and I saw someone tweet this story of how Steven Spielberg asked him to write the screenplay for Jaws, and he was like, no, I'm doing a BBC play. He was like, you're turning down a Hollywood opportunity to do a BBC TV play. He was like, BBC radio play.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so stupid.
I know.
But he would have just felt, it needs to be the right story.
Right.
And in retrospect, Jaws probably wasn't the story for him.
Right.
Yeah.
But also just reflects how important BBC radio is.
Oh, I know. I absolutely love listening to it. But interestingly, the radio has become podcasts.
Yes, so true.
It's the same idea.
It is the same idea.
It's got a different name.
But it's so quick and snackable. Whenever I'm back at my parents' in Birmingham, they have Radio 4 in like every room, and I just migrate around the house. But it's like suddenly you're listening.
Oh, it's so relaxing, and you go in and out, and you don't. It's the fact that you're not always curating what you're listening or watching.
It's like suddenly you're listening to 7 minutes about shipping.
Yeah, and you're like, did I need to know this? No, but it's of interest.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's so...
It's like the same with the magazine or, you know, or a newspaper.
It's so important for kids as well. I think about that a lot from when I was growing up, that my parents often talk about my older sister's kids. They're like, oh, they just don't watch the news in the way that you guys did. And it's just because it was just like on in the house. And I think now everyone...
And absorbed it,
you osmosed it in a way that I think you don't in the same way now.
Well, I remember thinking actually the difference, actually when we were shooting The Worst Witch, it was when 9/11 happened. Wow. And everyone like huddled around, we stopped shooting and everyone huddled around the TV to see what was happening. Yeah. And I thought the greatest difference between then and now is that when there's a terrible event, we are all looking at it individually on our phones. Yeah. And that's sort of just looking back at that and thinking, gosh, that is the seismic shift.
It really is.
That we have gone through in the last, 20, 30 years. Is just from it being a group activity to the individualization of consumption of news.
And then because it's individualized, you actually get to sort of like curate your own
story
in a way that has some wonderful qualities and some like harmful ones. Like because you don't get surprise and delight in the same way.
Well, and also it's a lot for one person to be consuming on their own.
Totally. But yeah, I love BBC Radio always and forever.
Yeah.
All right, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, another of your favourite books. Tell me what you love about that.
I really like the Bronte sisters. I was actually torn between Wuthering Heights or Jyn Eyre.
Yeah.
And I love there's always a brutality to their writing. There's a kind of emotional intensity. There's a kind of, it's so impassioned and there's a real toughness to it. And obviously those women growing up, in the moors and that
with their weird brother,
that intense family, and then the environment they were in, it's just so unforgiving.
Totally.
And then how they managed to distill all of that into their work, and particularly in Wuthering Heights. And I just was really quite captivated by the book from quite a young age for that reason. It's it just the intensity of it.
Yeah, I was struck reading it again this weekend how almost like soap opera-ish the levels of drama were, not in a bad way. I mean, in a very complimentary way, like the sort of the angst and the drama and the like in each scene. It's
very heightened, isn't it?
Heightened.
Yeah.
And it's so like histrionic in this kind of. There's no like compare it to the waves where people's needs and feelings are quite inside, and they're like articulating them out, and they're like
are getting repressed
exactly. They're like bobbing around, like keeping it inside, whereas it's all out on the table.
It's like the opposite.
It really is.
It's quite fiery.
It is.
No one holds back, and the idea that part of life is tempestuous, it shifts and changes.
There was like a few bits that I wrote down, like I think, what was it? I mean, obviously, I liked this bit that I didn't remember at all when Catherine was talking to Nellie, the sort of like lady, about who she was going to marry. And then she was like, I require to be left alone. I don't want to choose either of them, basically. And I was like, God, that kind of like, just leave me alone.
Oh, yeah. And not being able to have time to yourself.
No.
And that's so similar with Austen as well. Yes. And the Brontes, that they're constantly being interrupted. Yes. And just that. Well, that's also what, Virginia Woolf talks about, a room of one's own. The need for physical space to reflect and to have ideas, and that being such a struggle for so many of these authors.
How do you carve out time for yourself? Do you have like a routine to get like an hour on your own or anything like that?
I do. I mean, mainly through exercise, like going to yoga or running or. That's kind of how I try and keep a level head.
Yeah, I mean, because it's hard to like carve out time, and I think about that a lot with work when I'm always trying to be like, I need to be efficient, but actually you need like idle time for processing time.
Yes, and sometimes by taking a break you come up with a better idea. If you go away and take the pressure off, sometimes you can work something out. And I find that through running. I find running really kind of therapeutic.
Do you run marathons or half marathons or anything? Oh god, no, just like a few miles.
Literally, I'm really impressed if I do like 10 minutes on the running machine.
No, I can't.
Literally, I'll go around our local park twice, and I'll be like, yes. I think it's just getting the heart rate, the heart rate up once a day, and you feel much better.
Oh, it's so nice. There's also this bit that when I was reading it again, when Kathy gets back from staying with the neighbours and she's sort of like curious about Edgar and she's coming back, and there's this tension as she feels the slippage between who she's become in the time away and who she was before and maybe who she wants to become. Have you ever had that experience in your 20s or with your work where you sort of come away and you come back slightly different? I sometimes, living abroad, I notice it when I go home. People are like, you do what now? And I'm like, I haven't stayed the same, sorry.
Yeah, nor should you.
No.
That's the whole point.
Right.
You change and evolve. And yeah, I do remember that, you know, going away filming and then coming back, there's a little bit of readjustment on re-entry. But I think sometimes when you're away, you know, there's less pressure. You know, you're not sort of being away from home. There is a kind of just, you know, even things like paying the bills and stuff like that, you know, if I'm shooting away and you're not so worried about the day to day. Whereas sometimes when you get back, it's kind of all the boring things that need sorting out.
Are your parents still in Birmingham?
They're not actually. They both live in different places.
Moved elsewhere. Yeah. So do you suppose you don't go back?
So I haven't been back. I used to go back when I was doing the Archers because I was doing it at university. So I'd go back to the mailbox. Yeah. Because it moved from Pebble Mill Studios and went to the mailbox. But I was thinking I'd absolutely love to just go back and visit and just be reminded of it again.
It is amazing. Actually. I go back probably about 4 times a year to see my parents and stuff. My sister's still there and stuff. And I love when I go into town. It's just like almost you always get this like glimmer of an old self. Like you sort of walk past this like a bus stop, and I'll be like, oh, that's when
it's quite special. It's very Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, it's quite weird. It's quite uncanny almost, actually.
Because you think, who is that person?
Who was that person?
Yes, that existed. Mm-hmm. That was happening.
Yep.
Is she still there?
Is she still there? And
like it's very it's very strange, but quite important to do.
Totally. And you sort of like struggle to almost find the connective tissue to where you are now. I'm like, how is that person now there? I don't know. It's an odd, it's an very
strange feeling.
Yeah, but town is very different now, especially since they knocked down the library.
And I know I used to love that library. I was saying that the other day, actually. I used to love going. There was something about that architecture because it was those really quite small, they were quite low ceilings, the rooms. And it was really, you know, I sometimes navigating, being able to concentrate, and I could really focus. Mm-hmm. And there was something about the environment that made it really special to be doing what you were doing.
Totally.
So I would agree with you.
Going up into a like body and the sort of like it was, and I liked the fact that it had all the sort of like random shops and like a bar on the Raphael's on the bottom, like you sort of
it's the idiosyncrasies that are so nice, and the oddness,
and like
I know if you make everything uniform and perfect, it's so boring.
Exactly.
No,
it's a shame they got
and the same
that.
with the I used to love the station. I remember you'd see all the trains. It'd be sort of like the old thing flicking, and
now it's
pretty. Yeah,
it's a bit shiny
unrecognizable.
Now. It's a little bit shiny.
But I guess things have to.
They have to move on.
Like us, they have to evolve
exactly,
and change and shift.
But no, I loved rereading the sort of Wuthering Heights, and I love that device in the where like it sort of starts with someone discovering I think Catherine's old like diary entries, and my favorite book is Possession by A.S. Byatt, where they discover the letters. But are you a letter keeper or a journal keeper?
I do like to write a journal or a diary. I find it really therapeutic writing out thoughts, especially when there's a lot of thoughts coming at the same time. And then letters I love to do, but increasingly finding it difficult to find the time. But and I like writing little thank you notes.
Same.
And but it's sometimes a struggle to fit that in, but I do, and I love receiving them as well.
Yeah. When Jessie Buckley was on this morning, we were talking about, she mentioned that she got some writings made up for rap gifts, and we were talking about rap gifts, and I was like, are they as much pressure as they sound like? And she was like, yes. Do you do rap gifts for all your projects as well, for everyone?
Yeah, no, you suddenly get to the end of the shoot and you go, oh my goodness, I've got to get all these presents. They've got to be really thoughtful and meaningful. Right? The pressure.
It's a lot, right?
It is, but do you know what often is nice to do is on Oh What Fun, there was a really great, we were shooting in Atlanta, amazing bookshop.
Oh, that's exactly what Jessie said. She said books, yeah.
And actually they were downstairs, they had a lovely section of art books and photography books. And there's, so you're rarely going to buy one of those beautiful books for yourself. So it was so easy, and just thinking about what everyone would like and
write a nice
the
note
easiest
inside.
gift. Yeah.
Tell me about Oh What Fun, because I watched it yesterday. It was so fun.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I loved it. It was really
good. I feel like it's sort of coming at the right time. We all need a little bit of festive cheer.
Totally.
At the end of the year. It is, it's just great. It's great fun. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer falling out of a truck. It's pretty cool.
It's so good.
It's and we had it was a lovely, lovely cast. We had such a great time hanging out together, and we all really naturally got on with each other.
Oh, so nice.
It was cool gang of people.
Are you a big Christmas celebrator? Are you like do you like having a big Christmas day?
I do, and we have, both my husband and I have a lot of family members. So that's always quite a
busy.
It's a big event.
Yeah, I always prefer Boxing Day because it feels a little bit like
just eat Rose's chocolate.
Exactly, and just stakes are slightly lower,
and just take the foot off the gas. Yeah,
exactly.
Be hungover.
Do you like gifting books for people at Christmas? Is that like a...
Yes, although sometimes I'll buy them for my nephews and nieces, and they're like, give the pen. They're like, it's not a book, is it? Like, yes, it is.
Yeah, read the goddamn book.
Yeah, I mean, that's good for your education.
Exactly. Are you much of a do not finish person with reading, or do you like force yourself to get through?
I used to force myself to get through, and now I just, if it doesn't, what's the point?
I was exactly the same.
It means also that is not what you're channeling.
No.
And you often like to be reading something that you're thinking about, or you're looking for an answer to, or there's some other reason. And so if you're not engaged, I think you've got to let it go.
Do you read in preparation for parts ever, like for roles?
Yes, definitely. It's a very useful way of finding a new angle into something. Reading a film, Train Dreams, that I did. I read a diary of a woman who was a kind of female pioneer, similar to the character I was playing, and she was a single parent with a child, and I was reading about it was like a daily diary of her.
Oh, wow.
What she would do, what she would eat. She'd have to fish for everything. She was had to be totally self-sufficient. She was a horse rider. She'd go with her child on the back, and they'd go out to the forest and go and camp in the thick snow for days at a time. And but interestingly, she was obsessed with coffee. So she had a coffee every morning that she'd make. So it's like, not everything changes.
No, I know. She'd love
coffee
Brooklyn.
Still, exactly. Still a big deal.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And how do you think about what parts to commit to, say, when you're like signing on for a project? Do you have like a rubric that you go by? Or?
I don't know really until I've read it. And then I factor in the story and the director and all those things feeling interesting and what I want to be saying in this moment, because it's quite powerful putting a story out into the world. So what is the story that I'm a part of telling is really key.
Are there any like secondary readers who you particularly trust that you might like ask to take a look at something?
I mean, with my agents, we read everything. It's very much a collaborative process, but ultimately you have to feel it.
Yeah.
You have to feel like, I want to go and do this. And you have to spend a long time with that character. So you have to believe in it to want to do it.
Totally. Well, your fourth book is War and Peace by Tolstoy.
Just a little one. Just a little book, a tiny book.
Tell me about your love of this book.
Well, this book took me so long to get through. Yeah. I mean, it was not an overnight read.
Yeah.
And actually, interestingly, I think it probably took me about 2 years or something to read, and I would read other stuff in between.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And then come back and. But I just found the detail of human experience and the human condition, a bit like Shakespeare.
Yes.
How do they capture that?
I know. Just
the absolute, just all the minutiae of what it is to be human and how we find meaning in what we're doing.
I'm sort of amazed that he can make me care about like so many like sort of in between scenes in a way.
Yes, like, it's all about that.
I felt the same when I read East of Eden by Steinbeck, and I was like just struck by like how be like, God, I've just 50 pages in this moment, but here we are.
Yeah, exactly. And to go so microscopic.
Totally.
And it's so much more about the undramatic moments actually. And that's kind of like life.
I know.
It's all the bits in between.
Yeah. I also think he kind of surprisingly, I thought he wrote like girlhood in quite an interesting way with Natasha in this as well. Sort of, I mean, and maybe I'm swayed because I watched the BBC version with Lily James where she did that.
Enjoyed that as well.
She was so good.
Yes, yeah, she really captured it.
Like that sort of like innocence and like joyfulness, the like laughter of girlhood.
But also the feeling of starting to navigate the world and understand that, the complexities of it.
Yeah.
But I love that, and I love the sort of the winterness of it. The snow and the cold,
the scale.
And the scale. Be able to go to talk about a country in its entirety, and then to go so particular, and so microscopic.
Yeah, exactly. And the history and the way it intertwines, it is really extraordinary, and the sort of dialogue is so good, and and it's especially even incredible because it's in translation. I think the translators do such a beautiful job.
And to be able to capture the essence of what the person was wanting to say.
Right. It's really quite remarkable. Have you read much other, like, are you a Russian literature person?
Well, I've read Anna Karenina.
Oh, yeah.
Which, again, is just...
banger.
Kind of, masterful.
Yeah.
And then Torrents of Spring to Turgenev, and I went through a period. My mother is a fan of Russian literature, so I kind of went. It was around. It was actually just after university. I went through a period of going and reading them, and
that's so nice.
There's also romance to them, isn't there? And the idea of sort of the longevity of love.
Yeah. I also miss the kind of like serialized form. Like I think that with Dickens, when you read it, you're like, oh, you can imagine why this was like,
oh my God,
so
page
good.
turner.
Like, you'd be like,
it's
waiting
like
for the
a
next
TV show.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why actually, interestingly, these kind of epic novels make great TV shows.
Yes.
Because particularly Dickens, because it was meant to be consumed on a weekly bite-sized basis.
Yeah, no, it is. It's such a wonderful way to consume and a wonderful way to like be like drawn, and you sort of get to go in more depth then because you have these smaller hooks pulling people through. You don't have to sort of
well, it's a bit like a soap opera, isn't it? There's got to be a hook at the end to get you to come back.
I know. So you're reading Intermezzo at the moment. Anything else on your to be read pile?
I just read an interesting book called Wintering, which was all about embracing the cold and embracing winter, and how talking about different societies, how they treat winter, and that it shouldn't be something to be afraid of. It should be embraced. And
I love that.
It's really, it's I quite like all the is it hugger?
Yeah, higgy, the other, whatever this. I don't know how you say it. Like that's just.
I quite like that, like light candles in the morning. Yeah. And how to bring warmth in the winter.
I love that. And your character in Oh What Fun is a novelist.
She is. Yes.
She's exactly
on a laptop.
I know, I liked that bit between her and her brother where he's like, okay, I didn't mean that part. And she's like, and the dialogue's good too. And he's like,
Yeah, so good. I love that. Like, the script was just so brilliantly written.
Yeah, it's very funny, and it does capture all those family dynamics.
Yeah, exactly. Well, just the the love / annoyance.
Yeah, totally.
That we all go through.
Yeah. Well, we're virtually at time, but one question we often ask our like guests on is like what books we think one of their like famous characters would like. So what do you think Jyn Erso's reading list might be?
I was like martial arts times.
Yeah.
Like,
I was trying to think about like what it might be as like the sort of like the daddy element. I don't know whether there'd be
Hamlet. No. Yeah, I think she'd like definitely. I think she'd like comics and fanzines and then literature wise, what would she be? Oh, maybe like Bukowski or something. Yeah, something really off the beat.
I asked my AI, I was like, what do you think they would be? And they said Ender's Game, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was
so random.
I know. It's like truly... The robots haven't quite got it yet, but it's always funny. I love asking random questions like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I wonder how it got there.
Yeah.
We'll find a link somewhere.
Yeah, it was sort of about the themes. It was about the sort of military and being a resistance and all that kind of vibe.
Resistance fighter.
Yeah.
Ender's Games, yeah.
Why not? Well, thank you so much. This was so fun. And thank you for choosing great books.
No, thank you. What a pleasure.